Hello again, I'm Ray from the Radio Workshop with another tale of land-based pirate radio from the 60s and 70s. I mentioned in the last video, I think it was the last one, about we had the aerial one side of a river and we were the other side of the river with the coax going under the water to, from the aerial to the transmitter. I did say I'd elaborate a little bit more on that, and quite a few people have contacted me about that. The point was, we wanted to be as far away from the aerial as possible. Kind of, if someone found the aerial, we were inaccessible, we were unget-atable, untouchable. So, we put a lot of thought into it, as usual, sitting in the pub, I don't know, should we do this? Yeah, let's have another beer. We could try that. And someone came up with the idea of put the aerial that side of the river. There's two rivers, either where I live, two rivers either side of us. So we chose one, and they said, put the aerial one side, we'll go the other. Coax. Initially, it was coax strung across the river. So we all agreed that was a pretty good idea, and we had, we found the location, and we started planning exactly what we were going to do. The aerial side of the river was basically farmland. There was a farmhouse quite some considerable distance away, and we could actually get into the field without being seen by the farmer if he's looking out of his farmhouse. So what we did, the aerial we decided was going to be vertical. There were no trees or anything. We didn't know where to put an aerial. We couldn't find, I think that's what it was, we couldn't find a suitable location, because this particular river, which is to the west of me, is all surrounded by farmland unless you go to the way up north, which we didn't want to do. So there was a kind of disused barn, and we thought what we'd do is put the aerial up beside that. Then anyone tracking it down, anyone doing a bit of direction finding, they're going to see the old disused barn, see the aerial, and think, great, we've got the transmitter, it's in the barn. So bear in mind that we're on medium wave. Let's say we're at the end of the medium wave band. Let's say we're on 200 meters. I forget the frequency. Let's say it was 200 meters. If you're going to have a vertical, you want at least a quarter wave, really. So that's 50 meters high. 50 meters. Well, we couldn't do that. We had an old military, telescopic military thing with some guy ropes and stuff. They were cheap enough in those days, kicking around. You could buy them from Practical Wireless or your local army surplus store. I think it was 40 feet, 30 or 40 feet, really, really short, considering the frequency we were on, So we needed a matching unit, some sort of aerial tuning unit at the bottom, which was basically a big coil, a very big coil, and a variable capacitor. And we matched, I think we used 75 ohm TV coax. 50 ohm coax was expensive. TV coax, you could kind of nick that from the workshop. Not me, of course, I hasten to add, not me. We'd previously set all this up elsewhere, not in the field, to make sure everything was all right, make sure the aerial, the tuning unit would match the aerial and the rest of it. We didn't have many radials, because that, would have taken us hours and hours to lay out loads of radials. What we did have, the outer of the coax, we stuck a stake in the ground, and then a wire from that, a wire from the stake to a big old, someone had a big old, these galvanised bath things. Someone had one of those, so we kind of threw it in the river. That went to the bottom, and that was the kind of, anyway, that was the kind of earth connection. It actually worked extremely well. But anyway, don't worry about too much about the technical side. The thing was now to get the coax, because all the time we're sort of looking around in case the farmer's around or anyone else. We had to get the other end of the coax. We'd set all that up across the river. Now all this had been planned, in the past. What we were going to do exactly. We'd even taken a big stone with us, with sort of rope round it. And the idea was you tie the coax to the stone, and then you swing the stone like this. Hey, I'm doing a Magnus Pike again. People have said I look like Magnus Pike. Do you remember him? Anyway, move the light in case I break it. Swing the stone round and round and round, then whoa. So across the river, and the coax is going round your foot like the cartoons. You end up in the river. Anyway, we actually did it. first go it went straight across the river to the other side. Didn't knock any of our mates out that were over there waiting for it. No one got bashed on the head. So that bit was successful. And of course then as we slackened it off, it just sort of slowly sank into the river. The tide, quite near to the coast, and when the tide's flowing in or out, it is really fast. But this must have been, I think the tide must have been in. Yeah, it was full up, so it must have been in. And it wasn't sort of flowing either way, so that was okay. So far, so good. So everything was set up. All we had to do then was just check the aerial tuning unit, just adjust that. So the lads the other side of the river fired up the transmitter, stuck out a carrier, and we didn't have anything technical. We just had a little RF sniffer type meter, and we just tuned up the unit for maximum on the meter, maximum RF. Nothing technical, but that was good enough. You know, we checked all this before, and that was good enough. So then we gathered up our bits and pieces. There was a footpath along by the river. Didn't seem to be used by anyone. No one was around, and that went quite a long way to a lane where we'd parked our car. The nearest bridge was a long way away, so you know you couldn't easily cross the river. That was the beauty of the spot that we'd chosen. Anyone finding the aerial, to cross the river, well, you either swim, which I wouldn't advise, or you go a long way to find the bridge. So anyway, we did that. We eventually drove round and ended up at the transmitter site. The aerial was still there. We were pleased to see when we arrived. Everything was set up, and we went on the air at 11 o'clock. Just right, 11 o'clock Sunday morning, medium wave. We were on the air. Look at that, a Strad radio. 1950s, is it? 1940s? I've got to get on with some work in a minute. That one's waiting to be done. Anyway, we're on the air. Everything's going really well. And where we were, you know, opposite side of the river to the aerial, there was like a track to a lane. Very difficult to get to because, the lane itself was only a mud track, really. And there was a way in and a way out, you know, so if we could see, not that we could see a lot from where we were, but if we did hear a car coming, you know, we could get in our car and drive off, sort of thing. So yeah, it was all going really well. We weren't getting signal reports from anywhere, of course, because we didn't have mobile phones, and you know, it wasn't a phone box nearby. Happy days. So anyway, rather than the GPO turn up, which is what we were expecting, we were hoping they'd turn up the other side of the river, and you know, we would be hiding in the bushes, sniggering, sort of thing. And you know, they'd sort of follow the wire and all this business and realise we're over there, and they were not able to get to us. Okay, they'd nick the aerial and the little matching unit, but that wasn't a problem. But they didn't turn up. Instead, we could only assume it was the farmer. He turned up. We saw him walking towards the aerial across the field, shotgun broken over his arm, in his wellies, his farmer's hat, his wax jacket, typical farmer, and he's walking towards the aerial. So this farmer, he's grabbed the aerial, he's shaking. I don't know why he shook the pole. I don't know what he thought. Perhaps he's going to try and pull it down or something. Only running about 15, 20 watts. You know, no RF burns or anything like that. And at that stage, we switched the gear off anyway. And of course, he couldn't see us. He hadn't at that stage sort of looked around. But he did see the wire in the end, the wire going off towards the river. And he propped his gun up against this old barn and started pulling the coax like this. Well, we disconnected it from the other end anyway. And you know, I thought we'd just let it go and let him put it across the river. But no, my mate grabbed the end. We're in the bushes, he grabbed the end. He's holding on to it. It was the old TV 75 ohm UHF coax, you know, the thicker stuff in those days. It was pretty strong, you know, you couldn't pull it and snap it. It was pretty strong. So it's coming up out of the water. I'm spying through the bushes. There's weeds hanging off it. And my mate is pulling it. And eventually my mate stood up. He came out of the bushes. The farmer was stronger than him. This mate of mine's only a little chap. And he's going towards the riverbank, holding on. I was saying, let go, let go. Anyway, he didn't, and he slipped down the riverbank, waist deep in water. as he let go, obviously he let go at some stage as he went down the bank. The farmer who's pulling, he went back onto his back. He wasn't happy. My mate's clambering up the bank. From here down is soaked. He's clambering up the bank, running back to the bushes. The others we'd grabbed the gear. They grabbed the gear and were already making their way back to the car. There's only us two left. So my mate, he came into the bushes. I'm looking. The farmer's going to grab his gun, a shotgun. So we did a run. We didn't, he didn't shoot it. I thought he was going to sort of blast it into the bushes. We'll get lead shot in our backsides or something. But he didn't. Anyway, we did a runner to the car, and we could hear the farmer shouting, "Rah, rah, rah," all this. Obviously, he got the aerial. He kept that. I don't know. He probably just scrapped it all, but he probably threw it in the river in disgust, along with the old galvanised tin bath thing. I don't suppose he pulled that out. That would have made an ideal photograph. We didn't bother with cameras in those days, with film and all the rest of it. Different these days, of course. But imagine a photo of my mate one side of the river, the farmer the other, the thick coax, tug of war going across the river. My mate goes in the water, the farmer falls flat on his back. Would have been you could get a few good photographs from that, but there we are. We had various other ideas, like run the coax up the river, a couple of 100 yards, and then into the bushes and all this. We didn't ever try that idea again. And also, I suppose the chances were really that the GPO could have turned up our side of the river. We were hoping that they'd see the aerial. If they did turn up at all, they'd see the aerial. Yeah, of course, from our side, thinking about it, you couldn't see it, but there we are. Yeah, it was great fun. As I've said in other videos, the whole point was to keep away from the aerial. Someone finds the aerial, they don't necessarily immediately come across the transmitter, and us, of course. So yeah, there were loads of ideas. That was one of the best ideas. That we heard later, the signal wasn't brilliant in town because we were out in the country. We were quite a way away from the town. But that was one of the better ideas. And had the farmer not turned up, which was a great shame, we could have perhaps we could have used that site for several Sundays. I suppose the farmer's going to be around at his field, isn't he? Thinking about it, it's a bit silly. The first thing he'd see is, what's that aerial down the bottom of my field by the river? What's that pole sticking up? There we are. I used to get a lot of enjoyment on Sundays going out in my car and tracking down pirate stations. Living on the south coast of the UK where I am, get your transistor radio, you could do your direction finding. That with the way the ferrite rod is, it'll either be that way or that way. You've got two choices. Well, with the sea behind me, I could sort of, if it's maximum signal there, it's unlikely to be out in the sea. Well, unless it's my mate out in his rowing boat. Do you remember that one? So, it was pretty good, and I was able to. There was one Sunday in particular, I tracked, this was out in the country again, I sort of drove along, right, it's that way, head that way, turn right wherever I can because it's now that way. I tracked this transmitter down this country lane, and I don't know, they must have seen me coming or something. I parked the car, as I drove past, massive signal, overloaded the front end of the transistor radio, so I parked, walked back, found the transmitter in a field. Marie Celeste, there's no one there. No one in sight. But I'll tell you about that one another time. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope I haven't bored you too much. Bye bye for now.